Hi, welcome to the Spring 2014 offering of Financial Reporting and Analysis at UTS. My name is Robert Trankowski and I'm going to be the lecturer in charge of this subject, and you will see me in some of the classes, depending on which classes you're taking. Let me introduce you to the team, and in order to do this I'll come across to our UTS Online website. I'll come back to that in a few moments. I'm Robert Trankowski. I'm the lecturer in charge. There's a silly little picture of me. Dr. Stephen Lim, who's been teaching on the subject for quite a while, is taking some of the other classes, and Helen Spiropoulos, for whom this is, I think, the second semester, is taking a few of the others. We're all pretty experienced accounting teachers, and hopefully you're going to find the subject fun. Okay, so let me introduce you to what the subject is about just briefly, as we will give you a better introduction in class. Now, here are our contact details. We have put some of our consultation hours up. I have already put my consultation hours up. They're going to be on Tuesdays. Stephen's are here, and Helen will put hers up once she's spoken to her classes to see what's convenient. So if you want to come and see us, check what our consultation times are. Alternatively, if the consultation hours don't suit, send us an email. We might be able to find an alternative time. Okay, we're here for you, and if you have problems, please come and talk to us. Okay, now this subject is a technical accounting subject, and we'll get into some of the content and how it's structured and how you need to think in class. So all I want to tell you today is that there's basically two broad chunks to the subject. The first one is basic coverage of specific income and balance sheet issues. So revenues, assets, liabilities. Then in the second half of the subject, actually it's a little bit less than half, we look at specific measurement issues where measurement or disclosure issues are quite difficult. Okay, and they're those four subjects that we see at the end there. Now, what should you expect in this subject in terms of assessment? 3 assessment components. The mid-semester exam is going to cover topics 1 to 6, so that's going to be held in the scheduled mid-semester exam week. There is a group case study worth 20%, and the final exam, 60%, will be in the final exam period. Theory, it can cover everything, because the theory goes all the way through the subject, but practical, we're guaranteeing you that the final exam will only cover topics 7 onwards. Okay, now if you have a look at the course outline, I'll show you where you'll find that in a moment. You will find all the information you need for your group assignment. You will not be able to start your group assignment until week 4 or 5. So I'll make another announcement at that stage, but at the moment just know that it's there and it involves some group work. Okay, so that's basically what we're expecting from you during the subject. Now, textbooks that you need, you only really need one textbook. We show 2 here. We've got the main text, Australian Financial Accounting by Craig Deegan. That one you should get. The Financial Reporting Handbook is something you might wish to get, but there's no requirement to purchase it, and as I will show you later, a lot of the stuff in there is available for free on the web. So I'll come back to that when I talk about other subject resources. Now, let me just point out that Australian Financial Accounting is the condensed version. You can buy the main version of this book, Australian Financial Accounting 7th edition. The main difference between the two is price. The condensed version, we negotiated with the publisher to just include the chapters that we require. Now, we thought that book would be cheaper and smaller for you. It's not smaller, they've used thicker paper, but it is cheaper. So for this subject, you only need the condensed version. But if you get the full 7th edition, that's fine. People always ask me, will previous editions do? Look, things change, problem numbers change. You may end up doing the wrong work or understanding the material incorrectly if you look at a previous version. Okay, so that's the text you need. Deegan Condensed Australian Financial Accounting. And we will have self-study problems that you need to work through. Almost all of those self-study problems are set from the Deegan text. So it is essential that you get that. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the structure of your learning. Because we're taking a multi-dimensional approach to your learning. We want you to learn in a way that suits you. So even though we've got classes, we've got self-study problems, there are a whole bunch of other resources there for you to utilize, depending on your attitude or your approach to learning. So I guess the key thing that you're going to see every week is you're going to be doing the readings. Most of them are from the textbook. There are a few other ones that we will put on UTS Online. And that understanding will be reinforced by coming to class. So each week we have a 3-hour seminar class, and in the second and third hours of those classes, we will be talking about, essentially the lecturer will be talking about that material. Okay, so that's reinforcing the readings, and it's important that you get the readings done in advance. Be aware, though, that if you do those readings, you're not going to understand everything, but you will come into the class informed, and you'll better be able to take away what we cover in class if you've done those readings. The other thing we want you to be doing are self-study problems. So a list of those is available in the course outline. They will be reinforced by the first hour of each class. So in the first hour, we do two things. We address any problems you've had with the questions that were set for that week. We assume you have done those problems. It's important that you do those problems. We'll be spending most of that first hour in working through one or two exercises that are set for that hour. Now, bear in mind, what we're going to do there is we're not necessarily going to be working through them with the lecturer up the front talking about these things. We're going to let you work as individuals or in groups, and as you have problems, we deal with them. This is a learning experience. It's not an experience where you just sit there and soak up knowledge from the guy at the front, me, Stephen, or Helen. Okay, now let me just underline that those self-study problems are listed in the course outline, and we will give you all of the solutions to those by the end of week 1. So the solutions for the whole semester. It's up to you to be self-disciplined and make sure you do the work without looking at the solutions, and then use the solutions to test your understanding. Okay, now secondly, sorry, that's Facebook going crazy on me there. Who cares? Secondly, we have a whole bunch of resources that are available for you. So let's talk through some of these and look at what they are. Firstly, I've already mentioned staff consultation hours. So there are times during the week when Stephen, Helen, or I will be available for you to just drop by. If those times aren't convenient, then make an appointment. You see here that Stephen wants you to make an appointment so he knows that you're coming. Helen will make an announcement. I'm happy for you to come by on Tuesdays, but I'll see you at other times if you make an appointment. Okay, that's great. So that's consultation hours. The second thing that we've got are drop-in sessions. Now, drop-in sessions are going to be held on Tuesdays. What they are is 2 one-hour sessions where most of the time I, sometimes Helen, sit in B328. And the way that we're going to structure those, well, we're not going to structure those. They are literally sessions where you come along to ask questions that you have about the subject. So these are essentially free-form classes. Now, having said that, in the early part of semester, there are a few issues that we are going to deal with. So most of the classes will be free-form, but in week 2 or 3, we're going to talk about issues like debits, credits, and net present values. Things that you need to know that you might not have a good understanding of. We haven't worked out exactly which week we'll talk about those in. There'll be an announcement. But if you're having problems with debits or credits or present value calculations, then come along to the drop-in for that week and we'll talk about those. Reading accounting standards is an important skill. It's only going to take 10 or 15 minutes to talk about, so one of the drop-ins will have the first 15 minutes devoted to that, and then the rest will be freeform. And we're going to have another drop-in a little later that talks about answering theory questions. So when you get theory questions on exams, how do you deal with them? How do you approach them? And we'll probably spend about half an hour in the drop-in for that, and the rest of the time again will be freeform. All of the remaining drop-ins for the semester will be freeform. So we have nothing planned. You come along, if you have questions, we can deal with them. Problems in understanding some of the stuff in lectures, problems in understanding some of the self-study tutorial questions, drop-ins are there for that purpose. Okay, so that's basically the drop-ins. Now, in addition, we have a number of other things such as YouTube videos and screencasts that have already been made available. So let me go back for a second to UTS Online. And if you go to UTS Online for financial reporting and analysis, most of the stuff that you're going to need is going to be here under course documents. So we've got a reading from a textbook by Whitred, Zimmer, Taylor and Wells that we want you to read for the first week. That's there. We've got some screencasts, some videos, and lecture slides will go up before the lecture for each week. So here are the lecture slides for week 1. Don't worry if you haven't printed them out. We will bring them along to the class, but only in the first week. Okay, so that's lecture slides. The videos, there are a bunch of videos, they're mostly hosted on YouTube, that address particular issues that we cover in the subject. So give you an additional way of understanding some of these things. One thing I need to point out, this subject addresses the issue of sustainability, but we do not have a separate lecture for that. So for sustainability, you do need to look at this sustainability module under videos. And that is about a 15-minute video. And trust me, hopefully it's not too boring, I hope. And lastly, there are screencasts. Now, the screencasts were recorded a few years ago for a different subject, but they cover a lot of the topics that we cover in FRA. So to the extent that they're relevant, we've got them included here. We will add new ones from time to time, and we will change some of these as the accounting standards change. Okay, so those resources are there for you on UTS Online. Let me just go back. One other thing that's quite important is the discussion board. Okay, so the discussion board, if you have a look here, on UTS Online, has a bunch of discussion fora for each of the different topic areas in the subject where we want you to ask questions. So if you've got questions about any of those topics and it's a question that you think somebody else might have, ask the question here. Also, feel free to answer other people's questions. It's amazing that much of the time that we come to answer these questions, they've already been answered, usually correctly, by another student. So then we just come in and say, hey, that's all right, it makes sense. So bear in mind, ask the questions in the topic area to which they relate, so that as we go through the subject, we can basically follow where you're up to and start resolving these questions. We're going to try to look at those on a quite regular basis, every 2 days or so, sometimes more frequently, so you should get a reasonably prompt response. And don't be upset if you ask a question at 2 a.m. and it hasn't been answered by 3 a.m. Sometimes that just doesn't happen. Okay, so that's the discussion board. Now, Self-Study Solutions. Let me just go across here to course documents. Under course information, you're going to see the course outline. Under assignments, there's also a link to the course outline, because the course outline includes the self-study or tutorial problems. So let me just quickly open that up and let's have a look what we've got in there. So here it is open. This is the course outline. You will get this in the first class. We've already printed it. Tells you what we're covering in each of the weeks. Tells you who's taking the classes. And down here, starting from page 10 or thereabouts, we have a list of problems for each week. So if you have a look at what's going on for each week, and the first time we address these questions is in week 2. In week 2, we've got a bunch of questions that we expect you to have done before you come to the class. And we will then look at 2 questions in class. So bear in mind that the week 2 material for revenue will be covered in week 3. The week 1 material for introduction will be covered in week 2. So that first hour where we go through new problems that you haven't seen before will be dealing with these tutorial questions. Okay, now for the moment we've just got the questions there. Within a week or so, hopefully by the end of week 1, I will put up all of the solutions for the entire semester. Okay, so that's what we've got insofar as questions, self-study. Lecture slides and demos, I've already shown you that we have put up under course documents, the lecture slides for week 1. In some of those there will be, in addition to the documents, the slides, there will be a lecture demo document, so please download that. The way we put these up, these are all the same. We've just got a 1 per page, 3 per page and 6 per page PDF, so you can decide how you want to print it based on what's convenient to you. Lastly, recordings of class. One of the classes each week is going to be recorded. That is probably going to be one of the classes that I take, I think, and those recordings will come up here as a separate set of course documents. So if you can't make it to class or you want to listen to the material once more, just feel free to download the lecture recordings from there. Okay, the last thing that you need to watch out for, announcements. Okay, any announcements about the subject will come out here on course announcements, and you will note that when I put out a new announcement, when I edit one of these announcements, this is not something that you can see, but when I edit it, I have the option to say send a copy of this announcement to all the students. So the cool thing about that is whenever I edit an announcement, you will get a copy in your university email. It is important that you access your university email on a regular basis. Okay, so they're basically the resources that are there to help you get this information, get in control of this information. Okay, so there's a summary of those things there. Let me just clarify one more thing. Email, please don't email us about individual questions. Individual self-study questions or questions about the subject matter. Because if you have questions about the subject, those questions are likely to also be in the minds of other students. So please deal with them in class or on UTS Online. If you're going to email us, you should be emailing us about personal issues, so issues relating to your enrollment in the subject or an inability to attend a class, those sorts of things. Okay, and that will, because if I get an email from multiple students asking the same question, I get a little bit frustrated having to answer the same question again and again. Asking the question on the discussion board makes it a lot easier for you and makes it a lot easier for me. In fact, when you ask a question, sometimes the answer is already there. Okay, now I did mention a little earlier, I showed you 2 textbooks, the main text and this financial reporting handbook. What this financial reporting handbook has are all the accounting standards, if you like, all the accounting rules that relate to this subject. So why did I say you don't need to buy that? Well, because most of that is available online, asb.gov.au. That has all of the accounting standards that apply in Australia. So you can download them from there in PDF format. The up-to-date accounting rules, if you like. CPA Australia also has some fact sheets on every accounting standard. And there are a number of databases that we have at UTS. I'm going to talk about Data Analysis Premium a little later when we get on to talking about the assignment, because that will be relevant for your case study. Alright, well thank you very much for choosing FRA at UTS. I hope that the experience is a good one. If you have any questions, please feel free to talk to me or any of the other staff. If we get too many of a particular question, I'll put out an announcement to resolve any uncertainties there might be. I look forward to seeing you in class. Okay, bye.